In this year's iteration of the NBA on Christmas Day, we saw pretty much a full slate of thrillers, resulting in some of the most fun I've had watching basketball on Christmas Day in a long time. But perhaps the most popular story from Christmas Day is no other than the Los Angeles Lakers, which comes as no surprise. This game garnered a lot of media attention and sparked a Twitter firestorm discussing the Lakers' poor roster construction, Russell Westbrook's defensive and offensive issues, and calls for a slew of trades to be made prior to this year's trade deadline. In this video, I hope to go a lot more in depth as to what it was specifically that not only Russell Westbrook, but the Los Angeles Lakers as a whole did poorly on the defensive end. So hopefully you can get a more clear picture of the problem and filter out the noise that we saw from social media. We're going to be covering a lot in this video, so be sure to stick around until the end and hit that subscribe button if you're new. Let's get right into it. The biggest issue with Russell Westbrook on the defensive end can be boiled down into this one idea, and that's defensive instinct. Now, I'm not going to say whether it's for a lack of effort or for a lack of defensive ability, but Russ's defensive instincts are severely lacking for what they need to be in order to help this Lakers team. The first possession that we're going to take a look at has Russell Westbrook guarding James Harden on the wing. Bruce Brown is going to come and set a screen on Westbrook. James Harden takes the screen to be switched on to LeBron. Now, in most scenarios, logically Russ is going to switch onto Bruce Brown and cover the roll to the rim. That isn't what happens, and Harden is able to easily thread the needle for an easy floater. Now, one issue we saw from the Lakers early on was that they were doubling James Harden at the top of the key. While that's not inherently a bad idea, it does create a lot of mismatches, and with Harden being so smart at passing out of double teams, it does make you question if the benefits really outweigh the problems that come with it. Here on this play, Ellington and Howard are going to initiate a double team on James Harden off of Claxton's high screen. James Harden, being James Harden, is going to find Claxton on the roll despite the double team, which then forces Talen Horton-Tucker to come off of Bembry and provide potential help at the rim. Claxton makes a really smart read, and as a result of this, Bembry gets a wide open dunk. The Lakers kept doubling James Harden off of high screens throughout the game, despite them often having this same exact result. Now, this possession is simply bizarre to me because I can't exactly tell what the Lakers' philosophy was. LeBron and Westbrook are essentially doubling Claxton in the post, and Talen Horton-Tucker leaves Bruce Brown to come and lazily try and double team Harden. Harden makes a really nice pass to Brown, and Westbrook has no time to recover, and Brown gets the easy layup. This just seems like a lack of communication to me, and it's also indicative of a poorly implemented defensive scheme. Here, the Lakers are trying to guard the fast break, but they're in a 5-on-4 situation because Westbrook is still getting back on defense. They fail to guard the cut by Johnson to the rim, and Harden finds him for an easy layup. This looks like a result of miscommunication on matchups and who was supposed to guard who in transition. We saw a glimpse of this issue earlier, but Russell Westbrook really struggles with navigating pick and roll on the defensive end. Claxton once again sets the screen, but Russ goes over it. Now, this particular possession doesn't just fall on Westbrook, as Carmelo Anthony could have switched onto Claxton after seeing Westbrook go over the screen to stay on Harden, but that isn't what happened, and Claxton is able to get the ball to Brown for an easy finish. We can see this lack of communication illustrated once again here, with Carmelo and Talen Horton-Tucker trying to guard the dribble handoff. Westbrook switches onto Patty Mills, and then Harden gets a wide open look from deep because Talen Horton-Tucker can't recover off of the lost coverage. Now, this possession is already off to a rough start for the Lakers, and they're already at a disadvantage because you have Carmelo playing drop coverage on Harden on the weak side, with the other side of the court essentially playing 3-on-4 to start this playoff. Harden drives and makes a quick pass to Brown, Carmelo and Russ are both for some reason going to stay with Harden instead of relocating to a new matchup that's uncovered. Then Brown kicks to Bembry, who then makes the extra pass to Mills for an easy three. Here, Johnson brings the ball up the floor, and so far, there's not too much going wrong for the Lakers. However, once Johnson makes the first pass, both Talen Horton-Tucker and Darren Collison decide to move on his potential shot, leaving Mills wide open in the corner for a three. Now, THT should have stayed on Mills since Collison was initially closer anyways. Now, from this point on, you know, if you were watching the game, that Westbrook checks out and the Lakers proceed to go on an absolutely monster run in the fourth. Now, with less than 2 minutes left and the Lakers only down 2, Westbrook had probably his biggest defensive blunder of the night. James Johnson is driving, and it's clear that there's not a consensus between the Lakers on who is supposed to be guarding who. Westbrook seems to think he's maybe guarding Brown, but also maybe guarding Patty Mills. Westbrook is ball watching, and he almost looks like he's going to try and contest Johnson's drive, despite the fact that he's still a good 6 or 7 feet away. He leaves Patty Mills wide open in the corner, and Johnson finds him for 3 to put the Nets up by 5 with a minute and a half left. The Nets would go on to win 122-115, and this loss brought a ton of heat towards Russell Westbrook for his poor play on the defensive and offensive end. Now, this criticism was definitely warranted. Westbrook had the worst defensive rating of any player during that game that played more than 15 minutes, coming in at an absolutely terrible 139.2 points per 100 possessions. He was also a team worst -23 in the box score plus minus. Now, while I do think Russell Westbrook was, and for the most part has typically been, a pretty poor defender for his entire career, it's also clear that the defensive issues on this team run a lot deeper than just with Russ. There's poor communication, there's a lack of effort, and there's been a failure of the coaching staff to implement an effective defensive scheme that maximizes their strengths and minimizes their weaknesses. Now, while in theory it's easy to say the Lakers should trade Russell Westbrook, he's also on a $40 million contract, so that's much easier to say than it is to actually do. There are trades to be made for this Lakers team, but they're gonna have to work with what they have in order to get the most out of this team on both the defensive and offensive ends of the floor. So what do you think that the Lakers should do? Be sure to let me know in the comments below, and as always, if you're new to the channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button. We're almost to 4,000 subscribers, so let's try to hit that by the new year. As always, don't forget to leave a like on the video because that is the best way to help me out with the YouTube algorithm and get this video recommended to more people. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next one.